I love the countdown clock, although some might say it feels vaguely dystopian. More on that in a second. Welcome to Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Oswald. The show tonight brought to us by our friends at Siren Records. McHenry, I swear to God, one of the benefits to my wallet when we're on the other side of the pandemic is me not spending every dollar and every moment thinking about buying records. That said, when I'm doing it, there's no place better to do it than Siren Records McHenry, a location that has fueled my habit for the better part of the past 13 months. Check it out for yourself. Head on out there. Weather's changing in the Chicago and suburban area. Drive on out to McHenry. Go to Siren Records. Tell Bill and Jenny I say hi, and they'll treat you like family or something, or at least fellow music fans. So my guest tonight on Car Con Carne, he is an author, he's a journalist. He is Adam Bender, whose latest book, Utopia PR, is about a PR specialist managing various crises for a dystopian president. Adam Bender, good evening.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's just start with the book. First of all, I say something like managing crises for a dystopian president.
Yeah.
I think people's inclination would be to think, "Oh, is this about Donald Trump? Is this a take on the past 4 years of politics?" But this is not a partisan book.
hmm Yeah, I didn't want it to be a partisan book. It's, as a journalist, I've covered both Democratic and Republican administrations, and a lot of the stuff they do, pivoting from points or spinning bad stories in a good direction, kind of applies to everybody. And with this book, I kind of wanted it to show, this is something that can happen with any government.
For sure. And this president has a throne room. I feel like we're heading in that direction at some point. The thing about great dystopian books, and this is a humorous dystopian book, the thing about great dystopian books is there are just enough threads of plausibility to make you think, yeah, we could be heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Like I could see where things could exacerbate and become what this is. And to that end, there's a lot in this book that makes me think, oh yeah, we see that now, all the way down to the way the job of handling PR is described. Here we go. People in power tend to suffer from one kind of mania or another. The job of a PR rep is to keep the powerful person from showing it. Yeah, that's true. That's not fiction. That's the reality of PR,
Yeah.
dystopia or not.
Yeah. Well, I did say that it applies to either side. I have to say that the last 5 years I've watched probably way too much CNN. Just trying to keep track of it all, and seeing all these government officials go on and spokespeople go on, and it's just so amazing to see all the ways that they can avoid questions altogether, or talk about what they want to be talking about. It starts as like a question about aren't you endangering public safety, and then suddenly they're talking about jobs, and
Yes.
so
Just totally ignoring the question. I see that, and I'm given hope for my own life and business, personal life.
yeah.
Should we get another dog? Asked my daughter. Well, the thing about dogs is I love Scooby-Doo as a kid, and cartoons are great. We should watch more cartoons together. When was the last time we sat down and watched an animated show and just take it in a different direction?
Oh man, you're good at this. Yeah, you got
Big fan of Spin. One of my favorite parts of this book, again, this is a dystopian humor book. You talk about the grand list of distractions,
yeah.
which it's like that secret weapon, the greatest PR tool. They're brought to
Right.
life in this book. Some of my
Possibly written when they were a little drunk, but yeah, still excellent.
well, okay, my favorite one of the bunch. I mean, there's Fire the Vice President,
Yeah.
Bacon Festival with free bacon, and hands down, I hope you know where this is going. My favorite one: require business people to wear hats like in the old days.
Yes.
That was one of my honest to God laugh out loud moments reading your book.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, it's that list. I think when I was writing that, I think I was on a train. I don't know why I remember that. I was just like, I had the idea they should have a list, and I literally just brainstormed a bunch of ideas. My wife was with me, and I asked her if she had any suggestions. I think the bacon one might be hers because she's a big bacon fan.
Sure.
So I got to give her some credit on that one. But yeah, it was just, actually with this book, a lot of it, I should say that before this book, I wrote 3 dystopian books as well, but they were more on the serious horror of dystopia side of things. And then kind of as current events felt like they were sort of just catching up to my books, I kind of felt like, maybe I should have a little fun with this, next novel. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do a comedy. And a lot of the writing of it, I tried to just kind of go into it and just kind of have fun and, come up with stuff on the fly. Or sometimes I'll go back and read it and during the editing process and then just, here's a funny thing I can insert there too. So, yeah.
It's funny you should say that about your first few books being dystopian books of the more traditional variety, and they became a little too close to reality. That's what the guy behind Black Mirror said about his show.
Yeah.
He just had to put the brakes on Black Mirror. Life's just getting a little too close to this. I just need to step away. There's nothing I can create that can be enough of a distraction at this point.
I kind of feel that way about Black Mirror too. I really enjoyed it for a while. And then after a while, I was just like, this is getting to be too much. So,
Right. But we all needed a good, lighthearted
yeah.
dystopian book. And I will say, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, this is a quick read. This is not meant to labor over. This is something you can burn through in a night or two before you go to bed, which is what I did.
Yeah, again, like I was just trying to have fun writing it and wanted to write something quick. And I guess one of my biggest author influences is Kurt Vonnegut. And I always loved kind of how bitingly funny he can be with like so few words,
Yep.
maybe a 3-word sentence. And, and then also as a journalist, they trained me to write very short. So, but, get the point across in as few words as possible. So kind of those things combined. Yeah.
As we're talking about dystopian, as we're talking about Black Mirror and such, you cover technology and its regulation in your proverbial day job. I've got to think that being a journalist, writing about technology, just doing what you do, that has to inform your work as a fiction writer.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I write for a publication called Communications Daily. I cover state and local telecom and internet issues, but I get into a lot of issues like privacy, which is kind of especially big now. A lot of states are looking at passing privacy laws, and then I've also covered fair share of surveillance cases and stuff, kind of back when all the Patriot Act stuff was happening. If you remember all of that. So no, yeah, every day I'm writing stuff that kind of on topics that inform what I'm writing. In my last novel, I incorporated a lot of like augmented reality stuff and like wearable watches and stuff, things like that. But then also, so not just the subject, but I'm covering politics. So I kind of have gotten a feel for just how politicians talk about things and the phrases they use, as I said before, like bringing up jobs and win-win-win, and things like that, where they can explain, they can boil down any complicated issue into this helps consumers in some way, or it hurts consumers, and I think a lot of that kind of talk and covering hearings kind of is just ingrained in my mind now, and I can just kind of write in that style.
Well, the details and the quips come at a really quick clip in your book, which made me think of, there were moments when I thought, okay, dystopian West Wing, the way conversations bounce around. Your book made me, speaking of products and whatnot, your book made me rethink my relationship with milk. And you indirectly make the point, but we as a society, we have too many milks.
Yeah, that's true. Well, one of my favorite parts of the book, not to like pat myself on the shoulder, I hate kind of doing that, but was the explanation for what actually happened. My wife read it, was reading it, and she asked me like, well, what's keeping these people from actually, or what makes them actually drink this milk, which basically makes them, is like an opiate and makes them is supposed to make them follow the government and everything. And then I just came up with this idea that, well, if the expiration date, I think, is very short, people are going to feel this panic about drinking it, as quickly as possible. So, it's like an easy explanation, and they're like, this is a satire. That's enough. That's all I need. So
Yeah, I love that too. Going back to technology, you created your own social network for the book, Woozler. Are we out of control with social media? here in the real world,
I feel out of
as we're
control.
broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously?
I know we can't avoid it, right? I mean, but I do. I mean, there's just too many social services. You know, I mean, just personally, I'm talking about. I feel very overwhelmed by keeping track of all the different things, and I have to do it as a journalist and as an author. I have to try to figure out, what to do. But I don't know. Did you see the Social Dilemma on
Oh
Netflix?
yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty scary too.
Well, and you were talking about privacy a couple minutes ago.
Yeah,
I mean, that genie is so far out of the bottle at this point.
yeah.
Like we can't undo where we're at right now, can we?
I
With
don't know. I mean,
privacy.
yeah, it's a problem because it's like it's convenient as well. Like they know less information about us, and then they use it to market us stuff we like, or or they use it. Gmail, for example, is free, um, but it's not really free. I mean, it's Google's as an advertising business, right? So,
Mhm.
putting all those ads in there and everything like that, it's they are making money in some way, and would people want to pay $100 a year for Gmail? Maybe some would, and others don't want to pay for that. So yeah, I know it's hard to get rid of, and all these gadgets we have, smartphones and watches and everything. They're really neat. It's like, yeah, they're stealing my identity or whatever. You're not stealing my identity, but they're doing shady stuff possibly with my data. But it looks so cool, and
Right.
my friends are jealous. So, right.
Yeah, after the most recent Facebook password hack was announced within the past day or so, I went to that "Have I Been Owned"
Uh-huh.
website, and I'm like, well, okay, I dodged the Facebook bullet, but there's the whole list of every other site that has previous passwords that I've used, and
Yeah. What do you do with that information? You find out you've been owned. What do you do then?
well, here we are. Yeah, it just I'll
Yeah.
change my password. Yeah, I can live
Yes,
with
I've been
the
owned. Yeah.
I can live with the Patreon hack, I guess, and a couple sites.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been to that one for a while, but yeah, it's stunning how much stuff is out there. And you were talking about people contacting you on all these platforms. It is overwhelming.
Yeah.
All these social platforms. I had a friend the other day said, "Eh, did you get that message I sent you on Instagram?" Fuck no, I
Yeah.
just caught up on email and Facebook and
Yeah.
Twitter and my work
Eh,
email and
yeah.
oh
And
my
then there's all
god,
the messaging apps too.
yeah,
It's like I got like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, my regular text messaging, all of this on one phone. And it's like I want to just like get down to one, but I can't because some of my friends are on
right.
Signal or whatever, and it's just, yeah,
Right, and then some people have the audacity to call.
yeah,
"What are you doing? I'm treading water here. What are you doing calling me? Stop
right,
it. How
right,
dare you? How dare you?"
right,
One of my favorite lines in the book, and this isn't really a question, just an observation. It happens early in the book. A great line about religion. "My father is half Jewish, half Buddhist, while my mother is half Christian, one quarter Muslim, and one quarter Hindu. In what I consider a stroke of pure brilliance, I synthesized all these contradictions into a single belief system known as atheism." I love that. I think it set the tone for the character, and I thought it was a really clever kind of subversive statement.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I myself, I'm half Catholic and half Jewish, and they kind of I think canceled each other out a bit, except I get the guilt from both religions.
It's like matter and antimatter. They just kind of cancel each other out.
Right.
Um, and the great thing about satire is a good work of satire takes apart things that we just see and experience every day. I got the sense reading this book that you're annoyed by the same stuff I am in real life.
Yeah.
The characters go to a restaurant called Zand in the book, and it's one of these super pretentious restaurants where you choose colors rather than food items because we've all seen that in the hipster parts of town where the menus are just so over the top and ludicrous and conceptual. It's just hard to drill down and just get a good sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with elements like that in this, where I couldn't do that in a serious dystopian book.
No.
But in a funny one, I able to focus more on these kind of absurd things, and also just stuff you do see in sci-fi novels, like weird food substitutes and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think Actually, I found it pretty easy kind of going into the satire from a dystopian book. I think there's kind of some parallels between them because, in both cases, you're doing this exaggeration of government and kind of where things are going. But, with dystopia, you have the horror, whereas satire, as I said, you can focus on these kind of more absurd things. So, yeah, it was kind of, I felt like a lot of freedom actually writing a comedic book.
Oh, for sure. So, by the same token that I was thinking we were annoyed by the same things in real life, I also thought that, hey, Adam and I like the same things too. You reference both Batman and Spider-Man in this book.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a comic nerd?
I'm a big comic nerd. Yes.
I mean, right before we signed on, right before we started doing this interview, I was doing research trying to go through all the different theories about who the power broker is on the Falcon and
Uh-huh.
Winter Soldier.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Um,
I love
did,
that stuff.
did you figure it out? Yeah, I know. I've really been into the these Marvel shows on Disney Plus lately. WandaVision I thought was really good
Loved
actually.
it.
Just and that's I liked how that kind of dabbled in this absurd and the comedy and stuff, which I thought was like really really interesting. The Winter Soldier show is good as well. I don't feel like it's quite as good as WandaVision yet, but
Agreed.
I'm hoping it gets there. Maybe just because it's more straightforward. Like they threw us this curveball with WandaVision.
Yeah, you didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
You kind of have an idea of where Winter Soldier might end up.
But I do love the idea of these shows because they're like focusing on these kind of secondary characters from the movies that just like never really get fleshed out, or and they're like great actors that they've cast in these parts. And like finally we're getting to kind of explore in some more depth, who these people are. Yeah.
Do you remember the first comic book you ever bought?
First comic book I ever bought. I think it was a Superman book. I think it had like Metallo on the cover, and he was really big. It was like a '90s Superman book.
So he probably had long hair.
Yeah, no, it was pre long hair, but like not far before. It was before he got killed by Doomsday, like maybe a year or so. I think is what I remember. But I don't know. I was probably too young to be reading it. There were Metallo like crushed some guy, and he said he was paralyzed, and
And for those listening or watching who don't know, Metallo has the kryptonite heart.
Yeah.
Which really, if you're looking for someone to go up against Superman, that's really your guy.
Yeah. But for some reason in this book, I remember he was gigantic. And I don't know why. It's one of those things where you pick up the comic and realize it's like part 3. And you haven't read the first 2 parts, but I'll just go with it,
And yet it was easier then to pick up a comic like that. Now you're picking up a comic. It's part 3 of a multi-series crossover, and you don't know where it starts. And then all the books have renumbered with number 1s, and there are different volumes, and it's hard to. I sound like an old man right now, but I find it overwhelming to dig into stuff now.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, the good thing is they like restart everything every few years because they realize everyone's gotten completely lost. So that helps a bit. But actually now I'm starting to get more into kind of these creator-owned books that some of these writers like Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction and all these good guys have slightly more adults, like noir books and things like that, and they're a little bit easier to to get in. Yeah.
All right, so going back to Utopia PR and the books you've written before, one of my favorite genres, before I even was aware of what the word was, has always been dystopian fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dating back to when I was a kid, and my dad took me to see Escape from New York in the theater. I've always been fascinated. What is it about dystopias or dystopian fiction that makes you want to create in that space?
I find it just a really great way to kind of look at current events, actually, and just current societal issues that we're facing. It as fiction, I think it's more accessible than just like talking politics with someone. A lot of people like don't talk politics with me and that kind of thing. But it's this great way. You have this metaphor that you can really reach people in a kind of a different way. And so I don't know, I just always found that fascinating. You can by kind of taking this issue and just kind of extending it out to its the worst it could possibly get, it really kind of it exposes those things, and there's just so many cool ways you can do it. You can do it with all kinds of issues, like surveillance is like the easiest one to think of because 1984 obviously. And my first book, We the Watched, kind of goes into those issues. But then you have other books like The Handmaid's Tale, which is really talking about women's issues, gender issues, and just doing it in such a unique way.
Well, one of the hardest books I've ever read.
Yeah, and that show is really tough to watch.
Yeah, that's not something you binge.
No.
You're grateful that you have to wait a week for the next episode.
Yeah, and so I'm always excited to read a new dystopian book that's taking on a new issue like that. I actually read a book which maybe is more horror genre, but I think it's kind of dystopian. It's called Lakewood by Megan Giddings, and that its topic is medical experimentation, but it tackles race issues and how kind of the history of that medical experiments over the years, and it's just really like a unique new take by kind of a different voice. So yeah.
So if people want to read Utopia PR, they can pull it up on Kindle right now on Amazon. They can order it. It's out there, and it's a fun read, and it's a lot of it, as we talked about tonight, will seem familiar enough in this dystopian world. Right. So really nice job on the book. I'm glad we got the chance to talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, and all those store links are on my website for the book, utopiapr.info. So go there and check it out.
All right. You are Adam Bender. Stay right on the line. We're going to stop the broadcast.